it would be powerless and inert. Thus, it is the pure I consciousness or Vimarsh that is responsible for the manifestation, maintenance, and reabsorption. Vimarsh is also called Spanda in the Spanda Karika of Vasugupta. It is defined as the creative dynamism of Paramshiv. Abhinav Gupta in Paratrisika Vivarna formulates it as Kinchit Chalanam, movement as it were. Thus, it is not exactly movement since it's not in time and space. It's a throb, a vibration, a dynamism without any movement in itself, but that which serves as the causa sine qua non of all movements. Kashmir Shaivite conception of the Vimarsh aspect of the ultimate reality marks an important point of departure from the metaphysics of Vedanta of Shankara, where Brahman is conceived of as just prakash, light, or jnana, knowledge, devoid of any aspect of activity. It's nishkriya. In Vedanta, the activity belongs to Maya, and Ishwar assumes activity only when he is affected by Maya. Maya is anirvichnaya. In Kashmir Shaivism, Chit is both prakash and vimarsh, light and activity. Therefore, it has both the knowledge, jnana tattva, and doership, karta tattva. It is thus swatantriya. Therefore, activity belongs to it. In Kashmir Shaivism, Maya is not something which affects Paramshiv, but is its own Shakti by which it brings about multiplicity and difference. Even in case of Jeev, the fivefold activity of Shiv never ends, which is the emanation of projection, maintenance, withdrawal, concealment, and grace. The Shiv and Shakti, namely Prakash and Vimarsh, are thus the two aspects of Param Shiv, who transforms and unfolds itself into Anu, which is limited individual, through a long process. This process, as Abhinav Gupta formulates in his Tantraloka, entails a contraction of the I consciousness, which results in opening out of Param Shiv. Thus, Abhinav Gupta conceives Param Shiv to be immanent, Visvatma. He outlines the process of manifestation in Tantralok. Param Shiv, endowed with its five Shaktis, namely Chit, Anand, Ichha, Jnana, and Kriya, which are inseparably united with it. Kashmir Shaivism enumerates 36 tattvas in its metaphysics, which include the Shuddha tattva from 1 to 6, tattvas of limited individual experience from 6 to 12, Shuddha tattvas from 13 to 36, which includes tattvas of mental operation, sensation, and materiality. Kashmir Shaivite describe embodiment as a function of the limitation of the various malas or panchakanchakas. For the Shaiva, some coach or contraction of consciousness leads to Anu or individuation. Thus, the idea of embodiment in Shaivism is extensible, that is, without fixed boundaries. In the Shaiva doctrine, embodiment dictates the kind of experience a person can have. The body becomes the means whereby beings experience their particularity in the world. Thus, in Kashmir Shaivism, individuation is necessarily interwoven with embodiment. Since the cosmos is an unfolding or a transformation of the ultimate tattva, thus the body, person, and world are necessarily connected through their relation is greatly variable. This makes the body of prime importance in non-dual Shaiva soteriology and is regarded as the locus of transformation. Okay. 4 levels of Kashmir Shaivism also ascribes like 4 paths, which is called 4 paths, which is called upayas, namely Shaktapaya, Sambhopaya, Anovapaya, and Anupaya. 2 more minutes. I'll just take 2 more minutes. Anovapaya is concerned with Anu, that is the limited individual. It's the means found in the world of duality, that is Bhedapaya. Self operates in the external world of difference. Saktapaya means in the dual, non-dual reality, thus called Bhedapaya. It requires Vikalpatmat thinking, that is deliberate thinking of unity in difference. Sambhopaya stage is the ultimate is in which the initiate automatically or nirvikalp thinks of his or her unity with universe. And in Anupaya, also called as No-Upaya, self-recognizes himself and all matter as the absolute Shiva. It is the stage of self-recognition or Pratyabhigya. Thus, in Tantric metaphysics, bodies are not static. Most of the works dealing with the idea of embodiment in Indian philosophy are largely interpreted by the categories of Sankhya Yoga, which divides existence into Purush and Prakriti. Purush being the consciousness principle and Prakriti being the material principle. Kaivalya is the separation of Purush from Prakriti, entailing a discrimination, aka Vivek Khyati. However, in Tantra philosophy, Vigyan Bhairav differ fundamentally in its approach towards Prakriti, wherein it posits it as the creative principle which is the inseparable form from its consciousness principle. Union of Shiv and Shakti, that is matter and consciousness, in Kashmir Shaivism allows it to overcome the duality of Sankhya Yoga. Vigyan Bhairav, in its 120 dharnas, emphasize on the need of engaged embodied practices. Thus, it aims at realizing the self-recognition of Pratyabhigya through experiencing the lived body. It utilizes the mundane manifestation of the body like touch, taste, excitement, hearing, breathing, where all senses play an active role in ascent to Pratyabhigya. Thus, Kashmir Shaivism offers an ontology of the body wherein the body is not seen as at present at hand, but rather in terms of the flesh, which not only touches the world all the time, but is touched by it. The finitude of the body becomes the site of transcendence. The experience drifts off its subjectivity to reach the stage of Shuddha Vidya, Ishvara, Sadashiv, and finally pure energy and consciousness, namely Shiv and Shakti, where all dualities between subject-object is dissolved. This is the stage of Anuttar or Pratyabhigya. Thus, the Tantra philosophy perceives the body not in terms of what it is, but in terms of what it can do. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much for presenting. Pardon me, ma'am, I would like to invite you, please join us on the stage here, please. Okay, now we'll start with the question answer session. We have just, I think we can take maximum 3 questions. So, does anyone have any questions for Nancy? Anyone? If you're still forming the question, I think we can take the questions after the session. So, if there's no one, I think I'll thank you, Nancy. Thank you for presenting an amazing paper. I hope you can catch your breath now, drink some water and relax. You're done. Thank you. Okay. So the next paper for today's session is Yogeshwar Joshi from IIT Jodhpur. The title for the paper is Philosophical Exploration of Buddhist Views on Mind Wandering. Please join us here. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah. So, namaskar everyone. I would like to thank all the organizers of 27th International Congress of Vedanta for giving me this opportunity to present my paper. Yeah, thank you. I would also like to thank all the wonderful volunteers who are taking care of us so well for the last 2 days, and all the presenters and commentators. It's been truly an enriching experience for me. So before I start with my presentation, I just want to take a moment to share a few thoughts that have been coming to my mind for the last 2 days while listening and learning from all of you. So as a student of philosophy, one of the things that I notice is within myself and within the academia is that our understanding of Indian philosophy starts, generally with the help of secondary sources, but somehow it also remains at the secondary level. And what do I mean? I mean, there are 2 senses in which I use the word, secondary level. One is as Professor Chakrabarti also yesterday mentioned that, we are dependent on the English language to understand Indian philosophy. And the more deeper sense of, the secondary level is that the truth of this ancient text, it hardly becomes a living reality for us, because that's what the texts are meant to be. I'm reminded of Saint Namdev from Maharashtra, who while writing on Jnaneshwari, which is a commentary on Bhagavad Gita in Marathi, He says that Grantha Shreshti Jnaneshwari Ekatari Ovi Anubhavavi. So that he says that Jnaneshwari is a supreme text, and at least one line from it needs to be experienced. So that is what the intention or motivation of the great Vedantins have been. And the question for all of us to think about is, how do we make these ancient truths a living reality for us without succumbing to some sort of anti-intellectualism or proselytization or even puritanism. So with these thoughts in mind, I'll come to my presentation, which is philosophical exploration of Buddhist views on mind wandering. So my presentation would be quite visually guided. So I request all of you to just be with me. So this is the plan of the presentation. I'll start with introduction, sketching what mind wandering is. Then I'll move to the field of philosophy of mind wandering. What are some of the issues that are being discussed now? Then I'll move to mind wandering and Buddhism. Then I'll finally come to the conclusion, what Buddhist insights can contribute to the field of mind wandering. So the daily wandering. Look at this image. So when we get up in the morning, all of us must have experienced that we are brushing our teeth, but our mind, goes somewhere else. It's quite a daily phenomenon. Here is a person like all of us, reading a research paper. And while doing study, a thought comes to his mind about, what's the next dinner. Another thought comes to the mind, which might be about the next day, or or whatever it is, a movie that one would like to watch. Another thought comes. So you're engaged in some guided attention activity, but at the same time your mind takes you away from it. Now when you're not doing anything, maybe just like this guy, we are thinking about having not in this chilly winters, we may not think about having ice cream, maybe hot chocolate or hot tea or coffee. So this is our daily experience. When we are doing something, our mind invariably takes us somewhere. Now those who are familiar with this activity of meditation, what happens is that expectation for a lot of us is to be like a serene Buddha, or to calm down. But what happens at the end of the day is, the reality is that again the mind takes over us, and it takes us zigzag somewhere else. So yeah, through these examples we get what mind wandering is. Now let's come to how scholars have looked at it. So Thomas Hobbes, he defines, this is train of thoughts unguided without design. That's how he calls this nature of wandering mind. William James, he notes an observation that the natural tendency of attention, when left to itself, is to wander ever to new things. So if we look at our daily life, our conscious life, we see that there is a constant back and forth between thoughts that we consciously produce, control and command and guide, versus thoughts that just instantly happen to us without our own conscious commanding or guidance or control over it. So this is what mind wandering falls within the larger phenomena called as spontaneous thoughts, and it is estimated that around one third to one half of our daily waking life is engaged in this sort of an activity, and we hardly pay attention to it because it seems quite purposeless. It seems quite passive. That is not something done by it. It doesn't seem like an agentive activity. So if one third to one half of our daily life is spent in these sort of thoughts, it is really important that we pay attention to it and what these thoughts are all about. So it is also described in various ways as fantasy, daydreaming, self-generated mental activity, and it came to prominence in the last 2 decades in scientific literature with the with the discovery of what is called as default mode network. And the scientists defined it as stimulus independent and thought and task unrelated thought. And they use something called as thought sampling method, which is basically an introspective method where participants are asked from time to time to report about the content of their thought. So scientists are studying it quite. It's quite a recent field. In the last 20 years, it has come to the prominence. Now, what is philosophy of mind wandering? It is sort of a meta-theoretical field which discusses conceptual issues in mind wandering. It asks questions like, what do we mean by mind wandering, and how can we correctly define this mental faculty, mental phenomenon. Now it also discusses methodological issues, its relation with other mental phenomena, and how the cost and benefits associated with mind wandering. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? What does it lead to? So in my presentation, I will be mostly discussing the phenomenology of mind wandering and how it relates to other mental phenomena. I am skipping this slide, the next slide, which is about various accounts of mind wandering. If there are questions, who anybody would like to know, we can discuss it during the question answer round. So the guiding principle of my presentation is that any contemplative tradition that has developed sophisticated techniques for training the mind will also have a sophisticated understanding of the nature of a wandering mind. It is quite, the image that I mentioned in the beginning, when you are meditating or when you are praying or whatever sort of contemplative activity that one is engaged in, one of the first thing that we encounter or come across is the tendency of the mind to wander away. As Yoga Shastra, Patanjali Yoga Sutra also says, Chitta Vritti Nirodhaha. So Chitta Vrittis basically. So I'll be focusing on Buddhist philosophy, but since I mentioned the guiding principle is any contemplative tradition, I would like to know from all of you, who are steeped into the Vedantin and the Orthodox traditions, if you can have a discussion on how this phenomena is described in ancient texts, it would be really nice. So I'll be focusing on Buddhist philosophy. And I make 2 points in my paper that Buddhist insights help us to make progress on phenomenology of mind wandering. What is phenomenology of mind wandering? It basically means that what is the nature of experience when our mind is wandering basically. What is its temporal orientation? What are we thinking about? Is it about future? Is it about past? Is it about some atemporal event? What is it about? Then what is the representational format of mind wandering? Whether is it a kind of internal verbal chatter, or is it a kind of visual imagery? So that's what, all these kind of phenomenology of mind wandering. And I'll be also trying to bring out the relation between mind wandering and ignorance, avidya. How the Buddhist philosophy helps us to make sense of these two problems. So mind and Buddhism. So basically, when I talk about Buddhist philosophy, what I'll be usually confining myself, what I'll be deriving from is the Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, which forms the basis of Tibetan Buddhism today. And it provides quite a detailed taxonomies and various classifications of mind based on rigorous introspective phenomenological inquiry. And each mental factor is defined and understood in a very specific manner. And I must confess before I move on that from the standards of the traditional scholarship, my understanding of the concept that I'll be discussing is quite at the infancy level, because in Tibetan Buddhism also there is a lot of emphasis on debate, logic, and that's how one gains clarity over a concept. And in Abhidharma literature, each of the mental factor is defined in such a precise term that and the clarity is gained through debate and the logic. So if you ask me, I'll be discussing some of the factors which are directly relevant to mind wandering, but if you ask me more about certain mental factors that you might see on the screen, Maybe I'll have to refer to the ancient text and see how it is defined in a very specific manner. I might say that, this is what it is, in a general terms. But yeah, so that's why I said that, my understanding is at quite infancy. So usually speaking, in Buddhism, in Abhidharma philosophers, they use mind, consciousness, and awareness quite interchangeably. So we need to keep in mind that when they say consciousness, it is not the Sachchidananda, but it is generally equated with, when they talk about mind, it might also mean consciousness. Now, for a Buddhist philosopher, the analysis of mind is the analysis of a discrete movement of consciousness, discrete movement of mental movement, or mind event as they call it, or even in Western philosophy they say stream of consciousness. And they define the nature of mind as clear and knowing. Now, clear has two meanings. Clear means clarity, in the sense that mind brings to awareness whatever is there in its vicinity. So you see at a table, that's how the mind illumines that. It makes it clear. And when you close eyes and you think about any object, it instantly pops up. So that's how also clarity means. And the other sense of clarity means transparency. That is, the actual nature of the mind is free of defilements. It is pure in that sense, just like the water is pure when the mud settles down. And the other quality is that mind is always in the characteristic of mind is that it is knowing. It knows whatever it comes across, whatever it illuminates. So there are twofold divisions of the mind: primary mind and mental factors. And so primary mind is basically the mind as a whole, and the mental factors is how we within the primary mind, how we designate a certain quality. So for instance, our perception of apple as a whole will be cognized by primary mind, whereas the mental factor would be how we relate with that, how we see its color, how we see its shape or size, or whether we are liking it or not liking it. So that's how. So there are around 51 mental factors, but regarding mind wandering, the last 6 root mental afflictions and 20 secondary mental factors become crucial. So root afflictions is basically mula kleshas, and secondary afflictions is upakleshas. So there are 6 mental root afflictions: attachment, aversion, ignorance, pride, afflictive view, and afflictive doubt. All of these are defined in a quite precise manner. Precise manner. And out of the secondary mental afflictions, 20 mental afflictions, the most important ones are dullness, excitation, laziness, forgetfulness, non-introspection, and distraction. So it is said that all these mental afflictions can be actually reduced to the 3 poisons, or the 3 afflictions: attachment, aversion, and ignorance. So I'll be mostly focusing on the secondary mental affliction, but they can be reduced further because they are secondary. So they can be reduced to the more primary ones, which is attachment, aversions, and ignorance. So these are the secondary mental afflictions, the 6 that I have stated. So dullness is a mental factor which is basically rooted in avidya, ignorance. It makes the mind hazy or foggy, leading to heaviness of mind. I think this is something that we generally experience after the afternoon lunch, when we sit for when we come for different sessions. There is some sort of a lethargy in the afternoon that sets up on mind. So it can, because of that, the mind cannot apprehend an object clearly, and it causes laxity. So there is gross and coarse level of dullness. At gross level, that is at coarse level, the object is unclear, and at the subtle level, it leads to lack of vividness and vibrancy. Now, all these terms are defined in quite specific manner. I'll come to what they mean. The second factor is excitation. It is rooted in attachment, and it distracts the mind towards attractive object. The third is laziness. It leads to ignorance, and it takes away the enthusiasm for engaging in virtues. The fourth one is forgetfulness. It acts as a basis for distraction and diverts the mind towards objects driven by afflictions. So then the next is non-introspection, which is asampradnya. It is a kind of afflictive intelligence which in a rash manner and without introspection makes the mind involved in acts of body, speech, and mind. Then the last one is distraction. It is rooted in any of the three poisons, that is attachment, anger, and ignorance, and it causes the mind to be scattered and distracted from the object of focus. Now there are three further types of distraction. One is natural distraction, that is through sense, five sense organs. When you're doing something and your eyes catches attention of something else, that would be natural distraction. External distraction is quite closer to the natural one, but it is about, as far as I understand, it is about a distraction towards the desirable object, whereas natural distraction can be anything, but external distraction would be more towards the desirable object. Internal distraction is again, there are gross and subtle laxity it causes, and it is about craving for delicious experience of consciousness, concentration, I'm sorry. Then there is distraction having distinguishing marks, distraction involving non-virtuous tendencies, and distraction involving attention. That is, let us be content with whatever we are doing, and let's not progress further in the meditation. So then there are five faults associated with shamatha meditation. That also gives us an idea about how the mind wanders when it is engaged in some sort of single pointed activity. All these factors are again quite relevant: laziness, forgetfulness of instructions, laxity and excitation, non-application of remedies, which is mindfulness and introspection, and over-application of remedies, that is, over-applying mindfulness and introspection whenever it is not required to do so. So generally we have a sense that in Buddhism it is all about mindfulness, but it can be a kind of over-application as well. Then there are some distractions to be kept in mind. What is the distinctions to be kept in mind? Scattering and excitation, distraction and scattering, and excitation and distraction. We'll discuss it more if the questions come up. So the conclusion is basically the factors that I have described: dullness, lethargy, laxity, excitation, non-introspection, forgetfulness, and distraction. They help us make progress on phenomenology of mind wandering, because it is not just about the mind being at other places, but it also has some quality of the way it describes dullness, or it may have some sort of a laxity, or the boredom might lead to the wandering nature of the mind. So then in having these different terminologies, the Buddhist views seem to be in agreement with family resemblance account of mind wandering. So I've skipped one slide about accounts of mind wandering, in which there is one account which says that mind wandering is something that can be described through various family resemblance concepts, not through a single definition. And then among all the terminology, this is my finding, that the scattering appears to be the most closest to mind wandering. It is described as a mental factor that makes the mind wander freely and widely, and it may be virtuous, non-virtuous, or neutral. And so the normative value of mind wandering in Buddhist philosophy is largely embedded in its ontology. That is, since they look at mind as something which is clear and knowing, whatever takes away the clarity of the mind is taken as some sort of a affliction. So, and the last point is, mind wandering can be traced back to the root affliction of ignorance, a form of non-cognition or a form of miscognition. So yeah, that's what how it connects with the mind wandering. And these are my references, these are the sources that I have used. This is me, zigzagging through all these, different terminologies. So thank you, and this is my email ID. Anybody would like to?
To the Shiva Sutras, the universe was created by non-dual universal consciousness in the beginning. Divine power arises from the free will of great consciousness, and it functions as a dynamic force that shapes and destroys the universe. This unhindered free will is Shiva, and appears as a creative pulse of the universe. Highest reality has 5 basic qualities: Chit, Anand, Ichcha, Gyan, and Kriya. Shiva is both the efficient cause and the material cause of creation and destruction, with the infinite wisdom, will, and dynamic power. It is very spontaneous and active. According to the teaching of Shiva Sutras, the consciousness of Shiva alone is the self of all manifestation in the deepest sense. In conclusion, all appearances are merely manifestations of universal consciousness, which is pure Shiva in its essence. Like most Indian philosophies, Kashmiri Saivism also believed that humans are bound to reincarnation due to ignorance. In other words, this ignorance refers to limited knowledge that mistake the limited self, the individual self, for the true self. And the Shiva Sutras explain the three malas that bind human consciousness. Mala means pollution, impurity, and obstruction. This prevents human from seeing the infinite light of divine consciousness. The mala has three forms. The first is Anava Mala. Here Anava means sense of ego. It is the most fundamental mala and is the cause of Maya Mala and Karma Mala. It can be completely overcome only by reaching the state of liberation called Shambhavapaya. Second, Maya Mala is a limitation of bondage due to knowledge of differentiation. This is due to differences in senses for all objects. And at the very root of this Maya Mala lies in the misunderstanding that one considers oneself to be separate from the world. This Maya Mala can be overcome only by Shaktopaya, which will be described later. And lastly, Karma Mala is a limitation and bondage caused by action. As a result, the conditioned ego commits good and evil deeds with specific intentions. Because of this action has intention, it is not free from good and evil ethical consequences. Naturally, this becomes the cause of result such as pleasure and pain, birth and death. This intentional karma functions as the cause of reincarnation to receive its consequences. This karma mala can be removed through anavopaya. As a result, mala can be said to be ignorance resulting from limited knowledge, forgetting that one's true nature as a universal consciousness, Shiva. Because of this, the conditioned individuals fall into delusion that the individual self separated from the universal consciousness. Because of this, people experience an unsatisfied and unstable state of consciousness. Additionally, according to the scriptures, these three malas bring about various restrictions on consciousness. Here is my second subtopic. A yogi following Kashmiri Shaivism must practice upaya, appropriate to his own stage of consciousness development. The original Shiva Sutras present three malas of upaya. And in addition to this, anupaya is a new concept created by Abhinavagupta. Among these four types of upaya, anupaya and shambhavapaya describe a state of consciousness that has already lost all discrimination and reaches the state of liberation, while Shaktopaya and Anavopaya are spiritual practices for yogis who have not yet completely achieved liberation. Anupaya itself is an ideal expression of the highest state of Shambhavapaya. The yogi achieved complete enlightenment at the Guru's single word, "You are Shiva," such as. Ultimately, this can be said to be a state where life and existence itself has become a natural, spontaneous practice. In this way, Anupaya expresses the ultimate state of Shaivite Tantra. Shambhavapaya can be said to be an explanation of the state of consciousness of yogi who has lost all duality and united with Shiva. The Shiva Sutras describe these states of consciousness as a beginning with the emergence of Bhairava, the transcendental consciousness by the grace of Shiva. The scriptures describe this as a flash of light and a rising of consciousness. Bhairava identified all Shaktis with himself and thus contains the entire universe within himself. Since this consciousness process occurs through the grace of Lord Shiva, it occurs naturally without any artificial effort. In Kashmiri the consciousness of yogi who has transcended all duality and differences by grasping Bhairava consciousness firmly established Shiva consciousness in the other three states of daily life. The scripture used the metaphor of peacock's egg to describe this. The plasma contained in a peacock's egg contains a single uniform liquid without any distinction. In this way, there is no distinction between subject and object in essence of consciousness. At the pinnacle of this enlightenment is the attainment of Shuddha Vidya, the purest knowledge. Through the achievement of this, the yogi gains the supreme power of Shiva, who can completely dominate all Shakti. In this state, he recognizes the entire universe as his own self. One who has realized this is called Jivan Mukta. In other words, it means that he has become Shiva alive. He is always in a state of Shiva consciousness. For a yogi who has reached this level of cosmic consciousness, everything is Shiva. So here is my last subtopic. The aforementioned Anupaya and Shambhopapaya are closer to an analysis of the state of consciousness of an already enlightened saint rather than practice method to raise the level of consciousness. Therefore, the following two types of upaya, namely Shaktopaya and Anavopaya, can be recognized as specific and practical practices that promote the development of consciousness presented in Kashmiri Shaivism. First, let's look at Shaktopaya. Shaktopaya is a practice for those who have a firm belief that this universe is Shiva, but have not yet directly experienced the transcendence of duality. The key here is discernment. Abhinavagupta divides discernment into pure discernment and impure discernment. According to him, pure discernment is a proposition that transcends duality. The most representative example is "you are Shiva." In contrast, impure discernment based on duality constantly reproduces the dualistic discrimination, such as right or wrong. By focusing on pure discernment, the yogi can finally experience direct awareness of reality and experience the state of non-discrimination. In this way, pure discernment has the power to resolve impure discernment. As mentioned above, this process is a practice for those who have not yet reached Jivan Mukta. So it does not appear completely spontaneously and naturally. Therefore, artificial effort is required. A yogi must exert effort by exerting his will. As a specific method practicing Shaktopaya includes repetition of mantra, meditation, and concentration, etc. Among these, mantra is the main practice method of Kashmiri Shaivism to realize the true universal self. A mantra is by no means a simple set of letters. It is mind itself of one who aspires to experience union with God. Mantra is a word composed of knowledge of supreme non-dualism and has its characteristic of omnipotence of Shiva. Mantra practice can be fully successful only when yogi has correct knowledge of active divine I consciousness. When the highest knowledge emerges, consciousness enters a state of movement in vast and infinite space. This is the state of Shiva and the state of ultimate reality. This knowledge of God's infinite power leads to rejection of all worldly forms of infinite and limited power. This knowledge results in Kechari Mudra, a specific arrangement of psychophysical postures that enables the yogi to move freely in the vast and infinite field of consciousness. Kechari is the state of Shiva and the bliss of the true self rising within. These practices begin with artificial effort at first, but eventually move on to the stage where they occur naturally and spontaneously. Lastly, Anavopaya is related to the empirical self. Therefore, these types of yogis practice in discernment, distinguishing between this and that. It is also said that it is possible to obtain superpowers through the practice of Anavopaya. By withdrawing consciousness from specific part of body, one can feel no pain and separate oneself from body through samadhi, and even it is said that it is possible to enter another body. Nevertheless, these superpowers are still surrounded in ignorance. So this is because this power is the result of moha, ignorance. Anavopaya is only stepping stone to ascend the higher states, Shaktopaya. Therefore, the ultimate goal of practice should not be to acquire this kind of superpowers, but to experience complete identity with Shiva consciousness, which is supreme reality. Only that is true self-realization. A yogi who has realized the self as pure consciousness is capable of creating another type of world according to his will. Here is my conclusion. The most important feature of the consciousness studies in Kashmiri Shaivism is the fact that upaya is classified according to the development level of the development level of consciousness of the practitioner rather than method of practice. So even when performing same technique of practice, the state of consciousness of yogi, the performing that is more important. So this perspective appears to have become a theoretical foundation for embracing various practice methods from mantra, meditation, and physical yoga. Another important point in Kashmiri Shaivite theory of practice is that Shambhopapaya, the highest level of consciousness, is described first and following by Shaktopaya and Anavopaya, which are lower levels. So this descending description method has two meanings. First, the consciousness of all of us is essentially Shiva, the universal consciousness. Second, the descending description method can be said to express its infinite trust in all human consciousness. Lastly, what I feel important about Kashmiri Shaivist theory of consciousness is that it recognizes the spontaneous dynamic power and active creativity of consciousness. This can be understood as an infinite affirmation of the absolute freedom and power of universal consciousness. Kashmiri Shaivite view of human consciousness is very optimistic. Therefore, when we break into the delusion and find our original self, the average level of human consciousness will eventually rise, and I'm convinced that only these changes are key to sustainable prosperity of mankind. Here are my references, photo sources, and thank you for your listening.
Thank you very much. This is a very good presentation in that sense that you have elaborately discussed everything regarding on Kashmiri Shaivism, but with your slides and good with the references also. But one of the thing just I wanted to ask as a, in this from this year that if you are using the term that universal consciousness.
Yes, ma'am.
So is there any necessity to using that term as individual consciousness there, or no term like that individual consciousness, only universal consciousness is there?
Oh yes, yes. So there I to say individual consciousness, according to Kashmiri Shaivism, individual consciousness is also essentially it is also Shiva, condensed form of Shiva. So here in Kashmiri Shaivism, according to Kashmiri Shaivist theory, so ignorance does not mean complete lack of knowledge. It is not complete absence of knowledge, but limited knowledge, having only limited knowledge. So now after modernization, we only consider that condensed self, individual self, as true self. So I think this knowledge is not completely false, but very limited, restricted knowledge, and it needs to be overcome. That's why I put emphasis on the term universal consciousness as a country. Hello? Hello? Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to the yes, I'm going to the discussion. Yes.
Yeah.
There's another question is that
Yeah.
that if you are using that universal consciousness and it is the ultimatum also, no?
Yes.
So we are all the being is the part of this Shiva, or this is the last stage that we have to go through these meditations or all
Yeah.
those things.
Oh yes. Actually, what I mean ultimate is experience of the consciousness. So actually, according to Kashmiri Shaivist theory, we are already Shiva, but we are not experiencing it because of that limited knowledge. So
those are
yeah.
the parts that we can obtain.
Yes. So what I focus on is experience of the yogi's consciousness. Yes. So we are already Shiva, but we are not recognizing it. Yes.
Thank you. And this paper is for discussion now, open for discussion. So please, sir.
Sorry. No. Sorry, sir. I cannot understand your question. Shaktopaya. Yes, sir. Yes.
Actually, sir is asking you that Shiva is a kind of power. Is it so that it is removing our all kind of ignorance or all?
Shiva is actually consciousness which has Shakti as his essence. Yes, so it is, I think, the most important difference with Shankaracharya's Advaita Vedanta. According to Shankaracharya, that consciousness is very inactive. Yeah, there is no. I don't think it has Shakti as its characteristic, but in Kashmiri Shaivite Tantra, there are, as I told you, there are five basic qualities: Chit, Anand, Icha, Gyan, and Kriya. Actually, Kriya, that is will to.
No, that is true.
dynamic,
That is true. That is a common knowledge.
Yes, yes.
What I wanted you to integrate in your paper was you should have a place for Pratibhijna. It's a recognition that you said we forgot that we are Shiva.
Yes, yes.
In that context, in the spiritual sadhana, through Shakti Upasana, right?
Shaktupaya.
Saktupaya,
Yes, yes.
use of Shakti as a means to elevate individual consciousness towards the Shiva consciousness.
Yes,
Shivoham.
yes.
So that presupposes realization, remembering, recollection. Pratibhijna means recollection
Yes,
of
yes.
my original status as Shiva.
Yes, sir.
So gradually we have to elevate. That is possible only through the gradual transition. Exactly.
Yeah,
You know, this
yeah.
is powerful. I like it.
Yeah,
I like
yes.
your presentation.
Thank
That is
you,
what
sir.
I want you to integrate.
Yeah. Yes, man.
Wonderful. Wonderful is a good
Yeah,
presentation.
thank you, sir.
So one thing I would like to know from you,
Yes, sir.
you have used the term Shaktopaya.
Yeah, yes.
S-A-K-T-O.
Yes.
A-Y-A. Is it Shakto Upaya or Shakti Upaya?
Oh.
What do you mean by that? If it is Shakti Upaya, then one Yaphala will be there. S-A-K-T-Y-O.
Yes, yes.
Y-U-P-A-Y-A. This is textual mistake.
Oh, yes, yes. Okay, sir. Yes. Yes. Actually, I'm doing my certificate course in St. Stephen's College right now on Sanskrit. So after I learn Sanskrit more, I will answer your question, sir.
See the Dhankhar and
Yes,
then
yes.
you translate it
Yes, yes.
in Roman script.
Okay, sir.
Upaya.
Shaktupaya.
Upaya.
Yes.
So that is Yaphala.
Shaktupaya. Yes, yes.
As if someone is Shakta and he is having. Shakta and Shakti. It's a different thing.
Yes, yes. Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Myself, Abhimanyu R. Nair from Kerala, and I am presenting a paper on Kaivalya Upanishad and analytical study. Let me begin with the introduction. The Vedic tradition comprises treasure mines of knowledge, Upanishads, from its positivity by extending its relevance at the present day. They are a profound and enlightening collection of knowledge and wisdom through oral transmission, leading the path of seeker through the rich framework of spirituality and philosophy. Etymologically, Upanishad is composed of the terms Upa and Shat, meaning sitting down near, which inspires the action of sitting at the feet of an enlightenment teacher to engage in a session of spiritual instructions, which denotes the ancient oral tradition of India. In other sense, Upanishad also means Brahma knowledge by which ignorance is annihilated. Aurobindo describes Upanishad as the supreme work of Indian mind. It is here that we find all the fundamental teachings that are central to Indian philosophy, the concepts of karma, samsara, moksha, atman, and Brahman. The Upanishads employ two ways of defining Brahman. One is its own nature, Swarupa Lakshana, that is, Brahman as the consciousness, existent, and bliss principle. The second definition is from its accidental attributes, wherein Brahman is shown as the origination, sustenance, and resolution of the universe. There are currently approximately 200 non-Upanishads. The Mukti Upanishad mentions 108 conventional Upanishads, including itself as the last. These Upanishads are mainly classified into two, major and minor, in order to distinguish the 10 well-known ones commended by Shankaracharya. Further, these Upanishads are categorized on a sectarian basis, particularly demanding the importance of a Vedic tradition, god or goddess such as Vedanta, Yoga, Vishnu, Shiva, Shakti, etc. Shaiva Upanishads and Kaivalya Upanishads. The Shaiva Upanishads are the one sectarian categorization where Shiva is established as the Brahman. The sectarian status of Shaivism and the pioneer lineage of the Upanishads showed difference in the opinion of the scholars in the number of Upanishads. The most prominent and independent among the opinions was the text The Shaiva Upanishads, edited by A. Mahadeva Shastri, published from Adayar Library, Madras. It consists of 15 Upanishads with commentary by Upanishad Brahmayogi, which includes Akshamalika, Adarvasiga, Adarvasira, Kalagni-rudra, Kaivalya, Ganapatya, Jabali, Dakshinamurti, Panchabrahma, Brahjabala, Bhasmajabala, Rudrahidaya, Rudraksha-jabala, Sarabha and Shedeshatara Upanishads. Another text, Aprakashita Upanishads, edited by Kunjanraj Mahasaya, added 15 more Upanishads to the classification. But it can be denied easily due to the lack of evidences of the relevance of the Upanishads. And the 60 Upanishads of the Veda, Volume 2 by Paul Deussen, translated from German by V.M. Hedeker and C.B. Palsul, has mentioned 5 Upanishads under the sectarian classification of Shaiva Upanishads: Adarvasiga, Adarvasira, Kaivalya, Nilarudra, and Kalagni-rudra. Almost all the referred sources, including commentaries and translations, excluding Aprakashita Upanishad as a Kaivalya Upanishad as the Shaiva Upanishad. Even some scholars have mentioned it as a Sannyasa Upanishad. K. Narayan Swami, in his edited text 30 Minor Upanishads, included Kaivalya Upanishad as a Sannyasa Upanishad. Kaivalya Upanishad is a component of the Krishna Yajurveda in the Kevala Saga and places 12th in the Muktika canon of 108 Upanishads. Etymologically, the Upanishad name Kaivalya itself refers to attainment or liberation. The Upanishad consists of a single chapter of 26 verses as a discourse between Lord Parameshtin and the sage Achyulayana. The text represents the sectarian categorization of Shaivism, representing Shiva as the supreme reality by mentioning the different alternatives of Shiva in the scripture. The scripture is most likely representing a Vedanta terminology other than a Shaivite one by replacing the rituals or karma for attaining liberation by Vijnana through Sravana, Manna and Yoga. The text discusses the relation of Atman, Brahman and ways to attain moksha and expounded the three Vidyas, Karma Vidya, Upasana Vidya and Brahma Vidya, and concludes by stating that the one who recites Shadrudriya can overcome the bondages of the cosmic world and attain liberation by the blessing of Lord Shiva. When analyzing the Kaivalya Upanishad, it starts with the desire for the knowledge, the Jignasa. Desire for the knowledge of Brahman. Inquisitive Achyulayana, with the great sincerity and devotion, approaches Parameshtin and requests to advance the knowledge of Brahma Vidya. And Brahmadeva himself instructs him with that this knowledge is only attained through Shraddha, implicit faith in the subject, Bhakti, unswerving devotion in the subject, Dhyana, sustained concentration, abundant flow of conviction in the subject, and Yoga, one-point concentration of mind on the attainment of quest, and not through the possession of wealth, nor through karma, mere performance of austerities related to rituals, nor through the putrapautra, offsprings or heirs to the lineage, and by tyaga, renunciation from the worldly desires alone is the way to realization. Through sannyasa, through thorough form of renunciation of all things, lead to state of transcendent bliss which far outshines the bliss of heaven. What are the qualities of the seeker? The one who meditates Savishesha Brahman need to attain certain qualities. He need to sit in the scheduled secluded place, ceasing all sensory desires and accept asceticism with pure body, mind and devotion in the comfortable posture of Sukhasana. Qualities of Savishesha Brahma. Lord Parameshwara, the omnipotent Lord of all, always with his consort Uma, the conjoined form of associated with Brahma Vidya, having his three eyes, the sun, moon and the fire, the blue-necked shining dark luster in the throat formed because of swallowing lethal poison from the Paladi Madana. He is witnessed, he saw everything that happening in the world, who is the source of the entire manifested world, the world which is created by the delusion of Maya, Avan Sakti of Brahman beyond all darknesses. He is the Brahman, he is the Shiva, he is the Indra, he is the imperishable, he is the supreme being that is manifested in its own glory. He is alone Vishnu, he is Prana, he is Kala, he is fire, he is the moon. In short, he alone is all that was and all that will be. The eternal, the one who knows him, can transcend and even pass the string of death, experience of one's own self in all being and all being in all self. This is the only path to liberation. No other path can lead to full salvation. Meditating the pranava. Scholars use arni, the sacrificial chip of wood uses in yagas. Their antakarna, the four tired inner senses, consist of buddhi, manas, ahankara and chitta as lower arni, and pranava, the syllable om, the mystic perversion of which the inseparable connects with the Supreme Lord, as upper arni, and practicing the extraction through madhana, that resulting fire, the fire of realization which burns up the ignorance, remove the sins and his worldly bondages. Manifestation of Brahma as self. He, the Brahma itself, deluded by Maya's false belief about existence, operates as the individual self-abiding Jiva, resorts to all actions because of the influence of the false pride, and finds fulfillment in a variety of pleasures like food, drink, woman, and the like. He finds satisfaction in the waking state. In the dreaming state, the same soul experiences the pleasure and pain of the artificial world created by his own mind by the influence of vasana. During Sushupti, he feels the bliss of ultimate reality. Again, the worldly bondages from the previous incarnation, he hacks back to his dreaming state, or is awakened to phenomenal world. Like the robed serpent comes into being in the perfect vision of an ignorant man, but the Jiva experiences the bodies of the gross, subtle and potential phases and goes to the dissolution. Conclusion. Kaivalyamunis delivers a simple and convenient way of understanding self and attaining liberation. It empowers the practitioner to see past the delusion of the material world and recognizes their actual nature as Brahman by concentrating on the non-dual aspect of life. The Upanishads teachings place a strong emphasis on knowledge, meditation and instructions of Guru as necessary components of spiritual development. Due to its similarity in terminology with Vedanta, with the Guru have a great importance. The guide for the seeker who helps to remove the veils of ignorance by transmits necessary knowledge of self and Brahman. The Upanishad explains the qualities of seeker as a primary theme. The practitioner should be withdrawn from external distractions, control the senses and focus the mind single-pointed. After discussing the qualities of the seeker, the Upanishad states the qualities of Savishesha Brahman, who is Lord Parameshwara, with referring physical qualities way to seeking the pure knowledge. Then the text discusses about the state of meditation in which the practitioner transcends the duality of the physical world such as pleasure and pain. They use their inner senses along with the pranava to attain knowledge of reality and recognizes that the world of sensory experience is in the Jagrata states the impermanent and deceitful. Through experiencing Swapna and Sushupti helps he achieves this knowledge. By knowing the self as indestructible, eternal and beyond the realm of the physical world, the physical body and mind are transient and part of illusionary world of Maya. Sanskrit.
So you are the scholar of Sanskrit or philosophy?
Sanskrit.
So in your title you have used a word that analytic study.
Yes.
In which way you have used that term?
It is analyzing the verses in a proper way with Vedanta. That's only.
But in philosophy we use this term in different way, no? Analysis. And when you were saying the Kaivalya Upanishad.
Kaivalya Upanishad.
whole Upanishad you have collected here, all the things in your discussions. So, what is your aim in this thing? Just to go through this, I would rather say it would be better to use the term Kaivalya Upanishad, a theoretical study rather than analytic study. I am in my position, I am saying so. Do you think that is there anything it is different from Kaivalya Upanishad to other Upanishad? Or
Actually,
importance of
okay. Actually, the Kaivalya Upanishad is considered as a sectarian Upanishad under the Saiva Upanishad classification. But this is the only one Upanishad that gives a Vedantic terminology which gives Guru and other prosperities more importance. That's why I gave a name analytical study, analyzing with the Vedantic style or terminology. That's only.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think any questions on this topic related?
Analysis means unentangling, some kind of confused use of language. This misunderstanding has been created by this linguistic turn in modern Western philosophy. That it doesn't mean that Indian philosophy never had this.
That kind of thing. Yes, that's why I'm asking for.
These
That
are
was why, as a
He can
scholar
still
in the
use it. He can still use it. This is just the English term. Sanskrit scholars, ancient Indian philosophers were more analytical than them.
yes, exactly.
If we use the word analysis, that's English. Our problem is we're doing all these things. We're doing Indian philosophy in English
Just
language.
like
That's the problem.
is there any link between the analytic philosophy with this Kaivalya Upanishad? That would be another position.
That is our problem.
That is our
He's using analysis, analytical,
In another sense,
in a general sense.
general sense, yes. That's the link.
And what Milan is telling, just I will tell you, and for the house also, analytic, it has got technical meaning, which is in the West. But apart from the technical meaning, philosophy itself an analysis. Because whenever you propose it, pratigya, then hetu, udaharan and nigamon all are analysis. So without analytic procedure, you cannot proceed. In Indian philosophy, it starts from Sutra, then Bhashya, then Vartiko, then contemporary thinkers' observation. Ye bahata pani, just flowing water, you cannot be stopped. So analysis, even in the 20th, 21st century, people will go on analyzing. So analysis can be there, but not in the loose sense, not in the technical sense. That's not.
It has a broad meaning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank
But
you.
I would just
Okay.
Thank you. I just actually wondering when you were saying that Kaivalya Upanishad is also known as Shannash Upanishad. So I just wanted to know in what sense it can be considered as Shannash Upanishad.
Actually, it was mentioned by a scholar K. Narayan Swami in a text. That's what I quoted here.
But have you gone through why it has been mentioned as so?
No,
that
sorry.
No, you should have.
Might be in
So,
Santishree
may I
class.
compliment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sure.
May I compliment you with the permission
Yes, sir.
of the
Yes,
chair?
sir.
So, one point, it apparently seems to me, Kaivalya Upanishad, it comes from the term Kevala. Kevala means one, isolation. I am isolated, whole world within me. So only one concept. And Sannasa means sammak nasa, forsaking everything. Here, to be alone, to keep myself confined within this world as one entity and renouncing the world shanti. That's why sammak nasa, that completely renunciation of the world and confining myself within me, the same thing, Kaivalya and sannyasa. In this sense, it may be called sannyasa.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
a very warm good morning to everybody. I am Professor Indira, working in Department of Philosophy, Pondicherry University. And this paper has been sharing with my research scholar and research associate, Mr. Kiran. First of all, I am very much thankful to the organizers, Mr. Sukalyan ji, Balram Singh ji, and Natarajan sir, and R.P. Singh sir for giving me the opportunity to participate in the 27th Philosophical Congress, International Philosophical Congress of Vedanta 2025. And coming to the topic of my paper, our paper, Imagining Technology in the Vedantic World. So the very objective of this paper is to bring harmony between the contemporary technological advancements with the Vedanta philosophy. And we know very well that the contemporary world has been very much trending with the so-called advancement of AI and ChatGPT and so on, but there is lacking of the values and social relationships and also the moral grounding. And Vedanta, whereas Vedanta is a comprehensive philosophical system which emphasizes the shaping of the world order through the systematic mental and spiritual way. So this paper is an attempt to harmonize the modern trending technological advancements with the Vedanta. Thank you, and over to Mr. Kiran.
So before starting, I just want to give a description of how I go through this. So I'll tell about how the reality is in Vedanta, then how that has been altered with technology. Then I'll go with the connection between technology and reality. Then I talk about the phenomenological approach, which is immanence and transcendence in technology. And then I'll put up a Vedantic perspective. And then we'll try to integrate. That's how I go. So before starting, next. So the fundamentals of Vedanta are like two things, which is non-duality and self-realization. So where Vedanta generally emphasizes the non-duality of life, where the Atman and Brahman are one, illustrating the unity of the universe. The next one is about self-realization. Again, in all the Vedantic schools, it is viewed as a pathway to understanding the universe and achieving liberation through self-examination. So when you're trying to follow or stick to the fundamentals of Vedanta, how are the realities are being depicted? See, Vedanta sees the physical realm as a manifestation of spiritual, with reality grounded in Brahman. And imagination is the second part, which is a very key in the Vedantic tradition. Because when unchecked imagination is what giving us illusions. So well-managed imaginations is what leads us to liberation. So the same concept can be applied to technology as well. Next one. Next. So how does technology shapes the reality? So in the current scenario of the contemporary world, everything with respect to technology or the contemporary relevance is through human logic, efficiency, and gaining more control over our daily life. That is the first thing. And second thing is about all the boundaries. All the boundaries are being transcended, and they're being extended, and they're being transcended. So through AI and other human intellectual process. So, and this kind of technology is changing the existing knowledge. So this needs an integrated approach. And what is happening when we are too much dependent on technology, there is a particular kind of tension between the artificial and the natural experiences. So, next. So the aim of this paper is to integrate the tradition and the innovation. For example, integrating the technology through the Vedantic principles, or then addressing the unchecked imagination and the control and the meaning. So that is the aim of this paper. Now coming to the concept of phenomenological concept of immanence and transcendence. Generally, in every aspect when we perceive, there are two concepts, which is very much evident to us when looking at, for example, when you're looking at a phone, when you're looking at a mobile or an app. For example, consider Zomato app. If you're looking at a Zomato app, the instant immanent idea you get is like you are delivering food through it. That's it. But the transcendental ideology for that is they are trying to control what we gonna order. For example, they do put up some notes saying that, are you hungry today? Today is Wednesday, there is some kind of offer. So what is happening with this? So in everything we perceive, there are two particular concepts, immanence and transcendence. So this immanence and transcendence should be integrated when it goes unchecked. So there leads to completely depending on the technology. So that is one aspect of immanence and transcendence in technology. And the second aspect, second perspective of immanence and transcendence is where it can be is a positive note. It's a positive note where it can be like, for example, you can't understand what is beyond a particular distance. So what do? You use a device to see, for example, telescope or binoculars or whatever. So that is one thing. And other thing is you can create a layered kind of imagination to give an idea. For example, if you can see, there are a lot of virtual reality scenarios, virtual reality games where you show the layered realities or how a reality can be layered. So this is a positive sense, in a positive sense. So this is how a perception can be understood from a phenomenological perspective. Now, next one. Yeah. So the Vedantic perspective on self and technology. So the self is infinite and unchanging, fundamentally the same as Brahman, the ultimate consciousness. So what is happening to a self when technology is included? Here we're talking about the contradiction. Self is unchanging, but when we are integrating technology in our daily lives, the self is changing because we update with the technology and we are forgetting our own self. So the point here is, with Vedantic principles, we have to overcome the ignorance of where we are not aware of our own self, that it is unchanging, but we are changing ourself. So bringing those 2 points together, that's how we can avoid that ignorance, and then we can reach the liberation, attain the liberation. So there were different kinds of distractions. The next one. Technological distractions. One is digital platforms. They often reinforce superficial identities. For example, if you look at any social media app or anything, they reinforce the superficial identities which are not real. They are imposed identities, distracting from inner spiritual growth. Then the dependency and disempowerment. If you can see in the academic scenario, if you are correcting any assignments in the academic scenario, most of the assignments are like AI based. All the assignments are AI based. And there were some people who are not able to even write without AI. So we were dependent on technology a bit too much, a bit faster as well. So what we can do is like the integrative approach, the next one. So we can set up a digital boundaries and then promote mindful engagement using the same technology. For example, if technology is posed as a problem, the same technology could be used as a solution as well. So we have to promote technology to support mindfulness that aligns with the human principles or the Vedantic principles. Next one. So the next one is ethical innovation. These days we are not in the innovation in the entire technological scenario is not based upon the human nature, but it's based on human need. It's not the inherent nature, but it's not based on external needs. Unchecked external needs will always lead to chaos. For example, you can say that if anyone has watched the movie about the recent one, the atom bomb, what's the movie? Okay, Christopher Nolan's movie. So, Oppenheimer. In that Oppenheimer movie, there's a discussion based on that. So, in that, Einstein says that when you can't predict the consequences, or when you are so sure that consequences could be devastating or something, better don't go with that kind of technology. So, we always look for a certainty everywhere. So, if you are uncertain of something, why do you go forward with the technology? So, I am trying to bring in a different approach here. So, when you are creating and innovating something, or when you put up some innovating app or something like that, if you don't know the consequences of it, so better don't go with it. So, be sure of the consequences. Then you can, that's my idea of ethical innovation. Then spiritual and material unity. So, again, similar to that aspect, everywhere we only think of the material unity, but not in spiritual sense in developing any app. So, that's the thing. So, with this, I want to conclude that the same technology which is a problem could be used as technological self-realization as well. So, this is how I wanted to imagine technology in the new Vedantic world order. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, both of you. Just as any kind of research scholars who wanted to do on research on Vedanta itself, is it required to do any research on technology itself nowadays? Do you think so?
Yes. Why? Because now, for example, I'm talking to you using a mic. Yes. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Everything now, technology has become inherent part of it, inherent part of us, our daily lives. So, if something is being inherent part of us, and you want to be, so for example, in every Indian philosophical school, we try to liberate through two different ways. So, for example, consider the Vivekananda example of.
The last paper we were saying about or discussing about Kaivalya or Mukti. So, when we are going to the liberation or Mukti, then what is the necessity of the technology here?
For example, you want to get out of something. You are in a maze. You want to get out of the maze. So, do we need to know the maze, how the maze is and all? You should know the maze to get out of the maze.
Yes.
So, that's the thing.
Yes, sir.
Because this is a technology controlled world. You can take it as a new kind of Maya.
That's what, yeah, a new kind of Maya.
New kind of Maya.
Yes.
21st century Maya.
Yeah, 21st century Maya.
Technology enabled Maya.
So
now,
in order to get
against the very foundation of the Upanishads, that you should remember, please.
Yeah. So. For your question.
Yes, that is what kind of thing that you now wanted to develop in this?
So I'm working on that. So right now I'm thinking of a framework, an ethical framework of use of technology. So I'm working on that. Ethical framework. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Shall I?
I'm taking some 2 or 3 questions here. I'll go to the experts of the scientists or might be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to add something to, or rather point out something. In your entire presentation, you seem to sublate the individual soul which is in ignorance with the true nature of soul.
Yes.
So you are saying that the self does not change, but in a technological way world, I think it was very loosely put, it changes.
Yes.
No, the self does not change. In whatever context you may put, the individual soul, which is what we call Ajnana Upahita Chaitanya, or a soul which is covered by Ajnana. Actually, soul is not covered. There is a pratiti of the world, Maya, the semblance of Maya, and there it happens. So it doesn't really matter, as Sir said, it doesn't really matter whether it is AI or whatever the Maya takes. And another basic thing is, you don't need to understand Maya to transcend Maya. That way no one would be able to do that. So you can't transcend variety by understanding variety, because by the very definition, variety will continue to be variegated. The moment you understand something, there will be something more which you have not yet understood. Understand? So there is a philosophical problem. Are you coming from the school of philosophy?
Yes, yes.
You are a philosophy student. Okay. So that is a serious problem. Because you cannot sublate the individual soul with the ultimate nature. In all Vedanta schools, no one will agree that the individual soul is your true nature. Everyone in Vedanta posits this ajnana. They have different languages, but everyone agrees that what we see apparent is not the reality. Okay, so here, so you seem to kind of confuse both of them. So here technology is good, and we have to live with technology, but that's in the realm of ignorance or ajnana. So it doesn't really matter for the ultimate truth. So actually, technology or no technology, it's, as he said, it's only a different type of Maya. But that doesn't matter. So you can say that, yeah, in practices, in spiritual practices or practices of different faith traditions, this is going to influence, as it is influencing. People find it difficult to, say, pray or meditate. That could be an aspect. But philosophically speaking, it really doesn't matter. Only the praxis or the practice is affected. So I just wanted to point out that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
To the sadhaka, because the ultimate reality is the same. No, even for the non-sadhaka, coming from a philosophical perspective, the ultimate reality, as he said, the self changes because of the technology. It does not. Self. Yeah, they live. No, but he is talking about, he brought both together, Vedanta, and if you don't bring, I have no problem. But he just opposed.
If you have any remarks on it.
Yeah, sir.
Sir, please.
Yeah. I think the reality is reality. Whether I am a philosopher, I am a chemist, or whatever, or myself, I have an opinion of myself. Think for some time, when I was little baby, I used to think I was a king. Later I realized, no, I'm not a king. So, but that's my perspective. In reality, who cares whether somebody is philosopher or not? So what I'm saying is that when we only limit something to philosophers or very knowledgeable people, or somebody who had a lot of practice, then it kind of leaves 99.999% alone. That your Swamiji, you have knowledge, you understand. Yeah, I will come back. I think we have 22 minutes left. So what I'm saying is, it is the technology is here. I'm not a big fan of technology, but technology is here. It has mesmerized everybody. And then philosophers like you and others really take us like baby steps. Okay, yeah, we know you love technology. Here is how you use technology to figure out yourself.
Okay,
That's the point.
Thank you, sir. And due to the paucity of our time, we are going to the session that is certificate distribution. And it's true that we are going a very big journey, that is technology and philosophy is going through the same line. And but just we have, as a reasonable person, we have to know that where we have to stop, because every day we are using mobile, but we know that it is a limitations of ourselves, and anytime we are saying that this is without mobile we cannot live. But anytime when it will destroy, then we think that it is different. Myself and mobile is different. So this kind of an illusion always arises in our mind. It's okay, but after all, we have to use technology. The life is based on technology. It's obvious. It's obvious. Okay, thank you to all of you, and to the listeners also, and to all the paper presenters. We are going to the certificate distribution ceremony. and I will call upon the name of, yes, I am the chairperson, though I will call the name of Professor Balaram ji, and the coordinator also, please, Sindhu Madam ji also, you please come. Together we will distribute the certificate.